Hello. Check my volume here. Hi, how are you? I'm going to give it a moment to see who is joining us live. And if you are watching on the replay, let us know in the comments so I can come back and say hello. And if it's your first time watching, definitely want to be able to say hello to you and see what's going on in your world and see what we might be able to cook up together. Maybe I've got some referrals for you. I don't know about you, by the way, but I'm a super connector. My brain naturally works. When I meet people, I think, okay, who needs to know this person? Who do they need to know about? And so I love doing that. If there's a connection that I can make for you, let me know. And today we are going to be talking about the quick and easy way to collapse time and space for your next quantum leap. I chatted earlier about, in one of my posts, about making time and money your servants. I used to work for time and money, meaning I used to let everything fill up my time and not really manage my time, right? So I got a lot done. I'm a generator. I can get a lot done. I can work with time unconsciously, or at least I used to be able to. Now I'm very conscious. It's here to serve me. I can bend it. I can collapse it. I can shorten the timelines of what I'm creating, but it took me a while to get there. And additionally, as many of us, we're used to exchanging time for dollars, right? So time, it takes on a different definition when we're selling that thing, right? Because it ends up not being our servant, even though we're making money off of it, if that makes sense. So, and then with money, right? We often are kind of led by money, right? We can fall into certain traps with money when we realize that money's here to serve us, that money's a magnifier, that it's a tool, that it wants to be a contribution to our desires. When we shift out of I need money to I desire money to create X, it changes a lot of things. But of course, that dance can take a little bit of time because we are very susceptible to all of the programming in the world that tells us we're too much, we're not enough. Here's what it means if you have money. Here's what it means if you don't have money. We use time as a way to buffer things. You know, a lot of times people will say, oh, I'm too busy, which is really just a veiled way of saying, I want to be left alone, or I need space, or I'm contracting, or whatever, right? We tend not to bother busy people. So there's all kinds of things anyways related to time and money. So then when we're not in right relationship with it, we don't know how to make it our servant. So I would say that's priority number one for all of us when we really want to be quantum leaping and making things happen at the speed of light, is making sure that our relationship with time is actually reflective of what we want it to be. And then additionally, what is getting our time? And is that actually a priority? Because what we give our time to is a priority. Most of the time, though, it's not. And we just don't have that as a reference point, right? So when I take a look at my time, especially if I feel like a lot of people are kind of wasting my time, I pay attention to patterns. And I go, okay, there's a lot of people that are wanting access to my time and not placing value on it. Where am I not placing value on it? How can I get in right relationship with it? What am I claiming is not a priority, but because it's getting my time actually is a priority? And is that what I want? So that's the second piece. Is everything that's in my 24 hours of a day actually a priority for me? And if there are things in there that are not, then what is my plan to shift that? So those are two quick things to really start creating greater alignment. But let's assume that we are in right relationship with time. Then one of the most fun things I love to do is do a future progression in my business. So when I connect them with the future, there's two things I can do. One is I decide where I want to be, and then I start acting like that person. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that I want to get to six figures. That's not my goal, but let's assume it is. And I don't know how to get there. So, but my future self does. My future self has already created that. So I'm going to call forward her wisdom and say, okay, show me what inner shifts you made, what outer shifts you made, what you created, what you called in, how you carry yourself, all of the things, right? So I'm going to live in the question. I don't need to answer it. I'm going to live in the question of it and just be in that question of constantly, what would a six-figure earner do in this situation? How would she start her day? How would she be responding to her own emails? How often would she be posting on social media? What would she be posting? And you get the drift, right? Like what events is she at? What stages is she on? Who's in her circle of influence? Who is she mentoring with? That kind of thing. So that way, we don't act from where we're at, we act from where we want to be, and it collapses time way more quickly. I know you've heard this before. Maybe I've just presented it in a way that sounds a little bit different, something lands. So if it does, let me know in the comments. The next thing I like to do is do a future progression. So I might need to journal first and get clear on what do I really want. Sometimes, well, in fact, a lot of times, at least for me, I have often thought that I wanted things that when it came down to it, I really didn't want it. For example, way back in the day, because I'm kind of an OG now in this space, which feels really weird to say that, but back in the day, the big goal for any healy-feely personal development kind of person was to get published with Hay House as one of their prized authors and to get on Oprah. If you did one of those things, you've made it. If you've done both of those things, you really made it. That was kind of the filter back then. So many of us were striving towards that and saying yes to things that maybe didn't feel aligned, but it was moving the needle that much closer to the goal. And what is the end goal? Like, why do we want those things? Is it for fame? Is it because we really feel we're going to help more people? Is it like, what is it? Is it just to have the experience of being a Hay House author or being on Oprah, for example? So many of us would do certain key things, right? We would participate in certain activities, or we'd be on certain stages, or we would say yes to things that maybe it didn't feel aligned. It didn't feel maybe misaligned, but it didn't feel completely aligned. And we were constantly trying to contort ourselves to build assets and to build authority, essentially, in our industry. And there's nothing wrong with building authority. And like any business, there's going to be times where we have to maybe say yes to things for different reasons or hire people for certain things or whatever, right? So it's not about judging it, but it's to say that it took me a while before I realized I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that for a lot of reasons, but I don't want any of that because it doesn't feel like my path, which can feel strange because we tend to we create reference points based on what we've experienced and or what we see other people doing. So we might see other people that are healy-feelies that are doing those things and think, well, if they've done it and that's how they made it, then I have to do that too. And intellectually, we know that doesn't make sense because we all have our own path. But a lot of things we do, of course, don't make sense because we're often led by the monkey mind unconsciously, myself included, as I just shared. So, so in journaling, I can get really clear about what do I want. And so a lot of times I'm surprised, like, oh, I thought I wanted that. But if I'm really honest with myself, I don't want that. Because as you know, you can manifest things and then it shows up and you think, oh, now that it's here, this isn't really what I wanted. I thought I wanted it. And it's okay that we manifested it, by the way, right? Just maybe it's just validation that we're creators. But am I really calling in what I want? So once I get clear on what I want through my journaling, or maybe I'm just already super clear, like it's on my wish list and I just can't imagine not having it. It's just so fun to think of the idea of having that. Then I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to visualize that. Not in the way that we hear about, oh, let's imagine it in our head, but I'm going to tune into the timeline that is already occurring and it feels palpable in my energy field. I don't have to work to create the vision. I can tune into that timeline and that particular scenario playing itself out. So it feels real. And then I'm going to ask that the version of me in the now moment calibrates. So it's my job in this present now version of me to calibrate up and become the frequency and become the inner and outer representation of the version of me that's already living that. And that happens in a nanosecond. I can calibrate to it right away and I can feel it. And then when I feel that calibration, I know that it's just a matter of time way less time than if I just waited for one day, someday for it to happen, or if I took a linear approach or something like that. So let me know in the comments if this makes sense, if I'm explaining this okay. You know, sometimes we can have things in our head or things that come natural to us over time and we don't realize we're not articulating it well. But when you are doing that particular exercise, the goal is to calibrate out into the future, which is really also a now moment. It's just happening in a different space and time, right? Because there is really no such thing as time. We just, of course, operate in the illusion. We consciously operate in the illusion of time because that's how we measure things in 3D. But what would happen if you calibrated to the version of you that's already got $1 million business, or is already in relationship with your divine life partner, or is already, you know, enjoying the body that you keep saying you want? Like this is applicable to anything. How do we collapse time and space to make that happen? Anyone that I know that is generating multiple six figures or more, they've learned how to calibrate to where they want to be. They've learned how to collapse time and space. And this is why this is important, because our brain will tell us, oh, it took me 5 years to make to create a 500K business. So therefore, it's going to take me 10 years to create a 7-figure business, meaning 10 years from this moment. Because if I had to do all of this to make 500K and I want to double my income, then that means I need to double the time it takes. I need to double the amount of work I put in. And usually people don't want that because it means working harder. And I don't blame you if that's you. But that actually doesn't have to be the case. In fact, it can take far less time to get to 7 figures than it does to multiple 6 figures when we learn how to collapse time and space, when we learn how to calibrate to the future version of our business. The reason why it can take people longer than they want to create whatever it is that they want is because we're conditioned to take one stair at a time, to take one rung on the ladder at a time, to make a 10K month and then make a 20K month and then make a 30K month, and everything is linear. We don't want linear results, but we're so used to things being linear. We get that in school, we get that in jobs, we get that in all kinds of places, where we constantly say we want quantum growth, but everything about our programming, or pretty much everything about our programming, says that things need to be linear. So we also have to separate ourselves from the version that expects things to be linear. It can really be this easy. If we can shift a belief in a nanosecond, if we can heal an issue in our body in a nanosecond, we can collapse time and space in a nanosecond. The reason why this is great for business growth is because if we give ourselves 12 months to make 100K, and we've decided it's going to take 12 months, it has no choice but to take 12 months to make 100K, because that's the definition we've placed around it. It doesn't mean we can't be surprised and delighted, but typically when we've decided something's going to take X amount of time, it will. Alternately, energy fills space. So if we create a container that's this wide, which is a 12-month container, and say, okay, I'm going to make 100K in 12 months, it has to fill that void incrementally. But if we learn how to collapse time and space, it doesn't need to take 12 months. We can now, once our cellular memory gets used to making 100K, and we make it in 12 months, then we can start challenging ourselves and say, okay, well, if I already know how to make 100K and I don't need 12 months to make it, can I do it in 6 months? Can I shorten the timeline? Oh, look at that. I made 100K in 6 months, because money doesn't care about the time we give it. It's going to show up in the container, in the space that we give it. If we require it to show up in a month, it will. If we require it to show up in a week, in one email, whatever the reference points are, we can collapse all of those and start to just experiment with it, to have fun with that, to go, okay, well, if it took me this long, then what if I shorten the timeline? What if I shorten the time and space it takes to create X? Can I do that? So this comes by already learning how to calibrate to your future self and what you want to create, and learning to give less space and less of a container, so to speak, right? So if the box is like 12 by 12, then let's make the box 6 by 6 kind of thing, right? So that it has no choice but to fill when it's filled. I hope I'm making sense with this. It's a lot of fun, and it's, of course, something that I teach in my Penthouse Mastermind and my Seven Figure Club Mastermind, which is why, of course, they get results really quickly, because we're really focused on getting results, and we're focused on getting results with all that masculine hustle, grind, crush it, all these words that I'm highly allergic to, and learning how to let the energy do the heavy lifting, and learning how to let our feminine essence do the heavy lifting, so to speak, for us to get us results. There's nothing wrong with masculine energy. Of course, we have to use a certain degree of masculine energy. But if we're leading with our feminine energy to create a lot of these, it actually feels better in our body. It creates less of a trauma response. We definitely are less prone to burnout and a variety of things, because we're not producing, we're contributing. Women like to contribute. Feminine energy likes to contribute. Male energy likes to produce. So that's another way that we, by the way, collapse time and space and make things happen, is having that paradigm shift in the way in which we approach making money. So let me know if this helps. If you would like to go deeper, either by chatting about how to go from 6 figures to multi-6 figures, or multi-6 figures to 7 figures and beyond, I have 2 different masterminds that are a great fit for that if you feel aligned. So let me know in the chat, or even send me a private message that you want to chat about that. I've created $1 million business assessment. So even if that's not your goal this year, it's still helpful for you to go through that. It's complimentary, and I'm gifting it to people who are making at least 100K or more. The reason why is because there's a certain level of dedication and CEO mindset that's required to cross the 6-figure threshold, right? And that tells me that someone's ready. They've got things that are selling, that they're ready to scale. And that's where I'm most useful. I'm most useful to people that are already generating income and want to just keep going up and up and up without all of the contraction and struggle and chaos and, all the things, right, that get in the way as we grow a business. So I hope this helped. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye for now.